Men are from Mars, Women are from Venus, by Dr. John Gray. Imagine that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. One day long ago, the Martians, looking through their telescopes, discovered the Venusians. Just glimpsing the Venusians awakened feelings they had never known. They fell in love and quickly invented space travel and flew to Venus. The Venusians welcomed the Martians with open arms. The love between the Venusians and Martians was magical. They delighted in being together, doing things together, and sharing together. Though from different worlds, they reveled in their differences. They spent months learning about each other, exploring and appreciating their different needs, preferences, and even behavior patterns. For years, they lived together in love and harmony. Then they decided to fly to Earth. In the beginning, everything was wonderful and beautiful. But the effects of Earth's atmosphere took hold, and one morning, everyone woke up with a peculiar kind of amnesia, selective amnesia. Both the Martians and Venusians forgot that they were from different planets and were supposed to be different. And one morning, everything they had learned about their differences was erased from their memory. And since that day, men and women have been in conflict. Without the awareness that we're supposed to be different, men and women are at odds with each other. We mistakenly assume that if our partners love us, they will react and behave in certain ways, the way we react when we love someone. Men mistakenly expect women to think, communicate, and react the way men do. Women mistakenly expect men to feel and communicate and respond the way women do. We've forgotten that men and women are supposed to be different. As a result, our relationships are filled with unnecessary friction and conflict. Clearly recognizing and respecting these differences dramatically reduces confusion when dealing with the opposite sex. When you remember that men are from Mars and women are from Venus, everything can be explained. Falling in love is always magical. It feels eternal. We naively believe that somehow we are exempt from the problems our parents had, free from the odds that love will die, assured that it's meant to be, and we are destined to live forever, happily ever after. But as the magic recedes and daily life takes over, it emerges that men continue to expect women to think and react like men, and women expect men to feel and behave like women. We don't take the time to understand and respect each other. We become demanding, resentful, judgmental, and intolerant. We ask ourselves, how does it happen? Why does it happen? Why does it happen to us? To answer these questions, our greatest minds have developed brilliant and complex philosophical and psychological models. Yet still the old patterns return, and love dies. It happens to almost everyone. Very few people indeed are able to grow in love, yet it does happen. When men and women are able to respect and accept their differences, then love has a chance to blossom. Through understanding the hidden differences of the opposite sex, we can more successfully give and receive the love that's in our hearts. By validating and accepting our differences, creative solutions can be discovered whereby we can succeed in getting what we want. And more important, we can learn how to best love and support the people we care about. Love is magical, and it can last if we remember our differences. The most frequently expressed complaint women have about men is that men don't listen. Either a man completely ignores her when she speaks, or he listens for a few beats, assesses what's bothering her, and then he proudly puts on his Mr. Fix-It hat and offers her a solution to make her feel better. No matter how many times she tells him that he's not listening, he doesn't get it, and he keeps doing the same thing. She wants empathy. He thinks she wants solutions. The most frequently expressed complaint men have about women is that women are always trying to change them. When a woman loves a man, she feels responsible to assist him in growing and tries to help him improve the way he does things. She forms the home improvement committee, and he becomes her primary focus. No matter how much he resists her help, she persists, waiting for an opportunity to help him or to tell him what to do. She thinks she's nurturing him, while he feels he's being controlled. Instead, he wants her acceptance. These two problems can finally be solved by first understanding why men offer solutions and why women seek to improve. Let's pretend to go back in time and observe life on Mars and Venus before the planets discovered one another and came to Earth. We can gain some insights into men and women. Martians value power, competency, efficiency, and achievement. Their sense of self is defined through their ability to achieve results. They experience fulfillment primarily through success and accomplishments. Achieving goals is very important to a Martian because it's the way for him to prove his competence and thus feel good about himself. And for him to feel good about himself, he must achieve these goals alone by himself. Autonomy is a symbol of efficiency, power, and competence. Understanding this Martian characteristic can help women to understand why men resist so much being corrected or being told what to do. To offer a man unsolicited advice is to presume that he doesn't know what to do or that he can't do it on his own. Men are very touchy about this because the issue of competence is so very important to them. Because he's handling his problems on his own, a Martian rarely talks about his problems unless he needs expert advice. Asking for help when you can do it yourself is perceived as a sign of weakness. However, if he truly does need help, then it's a sign of wisdom to get it. In this case, he'll find someone he respects and then talk about his problem. Talking about a problem on Mars is an invitation for advice. Another Martian feels honored by the opportunity. Automatically, he puts on his Mr. Fix-It hat, listens for a few beats, and then offers some jewels of advice. This Martian custom is one of the reasons men instinctively offer solutions when a woman talks about her feelings or about her problems. When a woman innocently shares upset feelings or explores out loud the problems of her day, a man mistakenly assumes she's looking for some expert advice. He proudly puts on his Mr. Fix-It hat and begins giving advice. This is his way of trying to help and of showing love. Once he's offered a solution, however, and she continues to be upset, it becomes increasingly difficult for him to listen because his solution's being rejected. He feels useless. He has no idea that by just listening with empathy and interest, he can be supportive. He does not know that on Venus, talking about problems is not an invitation to offer a solution. Venusians have different values. Their sense of self is defined through their feelings and the quality of their relationships and their communication. They experience fulfillment through sharing and relating. Communication is of primary importance. To share their personal feelings is much more important than achieving goals or success. Talking and relating to one another is a source of tremendous fulfillment. This fulfillment is hard for a man to comprehend. He can come close to understanding a woman's experience of sharing and relating by comparing it to the satisfaction he feels when he wins a race, achieves a goal, or solves a problem. Instead of being goal-oriented, women are relationship-oriented. They are more concerned with expressing their goodness, their love, their caring. Venusians are very intuitive. They pride themselves on being considerate of the needs and feelings of others. A sign of great love is to offer help and assistance to another Venusian without even being asked. Because proving one's competence is not as important to a Venusian, offering help is not offensive, and needing help is not a sign of weakness. A man, however, may feel offended when a woman offers advice because he doesn't feel she trusts his ability to do it himself. A woman has no conception of this male sensitivity because for her, it's another feather in her hat. If someone offers to help her, it makes her feel loved and cherished. But offering help to a man can make him feel incompetent, weak, or even unloved. When a woman tries to improve a man, he feels she's trying to fix him. She's trying to change him. He receives the message that he's broken. She doesn't realize her caring attempts to help may actually humiliate him. She mistakenly thinks she's just helping him to grow. Without this insight into the nature of men, it's very easy for a woman to unknowingly and unintentionally hurt and offend the man she loves most. For example, Tom and Mary were going to a party. Tom was driving. After about 20 minutes and going around the same block a few times, it was clear to Mary that Tom was lost. She finally suggested that he call for help. Tom became very silent. They eventually arrived at the party, but the tension from that moment persisted the whole evening. Mary had no idea of why Tom was so upset. From her side, she was just saying, "I love and care about you, so I'm offering this help." From his side, he was offended. What he heard was, "I don't trust you to get us there. You are incompetent." Without knowing about life on Mars, Mary couldn't appreciate how important it was for Tom to accomplish his goal without help. Offering advice was the ultimate insult. After hearing about Martians and Venusians, Mary learned how to support Tom at such difficult times. The next time he was lost, instead of offering help, she restrained herself from offering any advice. She took a deep, relaxing breath and appreciated in her heart what Tom was trying to do for her. Tom greatly appreciated her warmth and trust. The evening was a great success. Generally speaking, when a woman offers unsolicited advice or tries to help a man, she has no idea of how critical and unloving she may sound to him. Even though her intent is loving, her suggestions do offend and sometimes hurt. His reactions may be strong, especially if he felt criticized as a child or he experienced his father being criticized by his mother. For many men, it's important to prove that they can get to their goal, even if it's a small thing like driving to a restaurant or to a party. Ironically, he may be more sensitive about the little things than the big. His feelings are like this: if I can't be trusted to do the small things, like getting us to a party, how can she trust me to do the bigger things? Like their Martian ancestors, men pride themselves on being experts, especially when it comes to fixing mechanical things, getting places, or solving problems. These are the times when he needs her loving acceptance the most, and not her advice or criticism. Likewise, if a man doesn't understand how a woman is different, he can make things worse when he's actually trying to help. Men need to remember that women talk about problems to get close, and not necessarily to get solutions. So many times a woman just wants to share her feelings about her day, and her husband, thinking he's helping, interrupts her by offering a steady flow of solutions to her problems. For example, Mary comes home from an exhausting day. She wants and needs to share her feelings about the day. She says, "There's so much to do. I don't have any time for myself." Tom says, "You should quit that job. You don't have to work so hard. Find something you like to do." Mary says, "But I like my job. They just expect me to change everything at a moment's notice." Tom says, "Don't listen to him. Just do what you can do." Mary says, "I am. I can't believe I completely forgot to call my aunt today." Tom says, "Don't worry about it. She'll understand." Mary says, "Do you know what she's going through? She needs me." Tom says, "You worry too much. That's why you're so unhappy." Mary angrily says, "I'm not always unhappy. Can't you just listen to me?" Tom says, "I am listening." Mary says, "Why do I even bother?" After this conversation, Mary was more frustrated than when she arrived home, seeking intimacy and companionship. Tom was also frustrated and had no idea what went wrong. He wanted to help, but his problem-solving tactics didn't work. Without knowing about life on Venus, Tom didn't understand how important it was just to listen without offering solutions. His solutions only made things worse. You see, Venusians never offer solutions when someone's talking about their feelings. When Tom heard about the Venusians and how much they needed to talk, he gradually learned how to listen. When Mary now comes home tired or exhausted, their conversations are quite different. They sound like this. Mary says, "There's so much to do. I have no time for me." Tom takes a deep breath, relaxes on the exhale, and says, Sounds like you had a hard day." Mary says, "They expect me to change everything at a moment's notice. I don't know what to do." Tom pauses and then says, Mary says, "I even forgot to call my aunt." Tom says with a slightly wrinkled brow, "Oh no." Mary says, "She needs me so much now. I feel so bad." Tom says, "You're such a loving person. Come here. Let me give you a hug." Tom gives Mary a hug, and she relaxes in his arms with a sigh of relief. She then says, "I love talking with you. You make me really happy." And as they finish the hug, she says, "Thanks for listening. I feel much better." Not only Mary, but also Tom felt better. He was amazed at how much happier his wife was when he finally learned to listen. Not everything is wrong with Mr. Fix-It or the Home Improvement Committee. These are very positive Martian and Venusian attributes. The mistakes are only in timing and approach. Men need to remember that when women seem upset and talk about their problems, it's not the time to offer solutions. Women need to remember that unsolicited advice or criticism, especially if he's just made a mistake, makes him feel unloved and controlled. To learn from his mistakes, he needs to feel her acceptance more than her advice. When a man feels that a woman is not trying to improve him, he's much more likely to ask for her feedback and advice. If you're a woman, I suggest for the next week, practice restraining from giving any unsolicited advice or criticism. The men in your life will not only appreciate it, but also will be much more attentive to your needs and responsive. If you're a man, I suggest that for the next week, you practice listening whenever a woman speaks, with the sole intention of respectfully understanding what she's going through. Practice biting your tongue whenever you get the urge to offer a solution or change how she's feeling. You'll be surprised when you experience how much she appreciates you. One of the biggest differences between men and women is how they cope with stress. Men become increasingly focused and withdrawn, while women become increasingly overwhelmed and emotionally involved. At these times, a man's needs for feeling good are different from a woman's. He feels better by solving problems, while she feels better by talking about problems. Not understanding and accepting these differences creates unnecessary friction in our relationships. Here's a common example. When Tom comes home, he wants to relax and unwind by quietly reading the news. He is stressed by the unsolved problems of his day and finds relief through forgetting about them. His wife, Mary, also wants to relax from her stressful day. She, however, wants to find relief by talking about the problems of her day. The tension slowly building between them gradually becomes resentment. Tom secretly thinks Mary talks too much, while Mary feels ignored. Without understanding their differences, they will grow further apart. This problem can be resolved first by understanding in greater detail how men and women cope with stress. Let's again observe life on Mars and Venus and glean some insights about men and women. When a Martian gets upset, he never talks about what's bothering him. Instead, he becomes very quiet and goes to his private cave to think about his problem, mulling it over to find a solution. When he has found the solution, he feels much better and comes out of his cave. If he can't find a solution, then he needs to do something to forget his problems, like reading a magazine or playing a game. This is hard for women to understand because on Venus, sharing your problems with another is an important activity, and it's actually considered a sign of love and trust. When a man is stressed, he will withdraw into the cave of his mind and focus on solving a problem. At such times, he is powerless to give his partner the attention and communication she needs and deserves. It is hard for her to be accepting of him at these times because she doesn't know how stressed he is. If he were to come home and talk about his problems, then she could be more compassionate. But when a man is stuck in his cave, a woman resents his not being more open. She feels hurt when he turns on the news or goes outside to play some basketball and ignores her. It's easy to take it personally. To expect a man who's in his cave instantly to become open, responsive, and loving is as unrealistic as expecting a woman who's upset to immediately calm down and make complete sense. On the other hand, men generally have little awareness of how distant they become when they're in their cave. As a man recognizes how withdrawing into his cave may affect a woman, he can be more compassionate when she feels neglected and unimportant. To increase consideration, both men and women need to understand each other better. When a man begins to ignore his wife, she often takes it personally. Knowing he's coping with stress in his own way is extremely helpful, but does not always help her alleviate the pain. At such times, she may feel the need to talk about these feelings. This is when it's important for the man to validate her feelings. He needs to understand that she has a right to talk about her feelings, just as he has a right to withdraw into his cave and not talk. If she doesn't feel understood, then it's difficult for her to release her hurt and accept his differences. When women talk about problems, men usually resist. A man assumes she's talking with him about her problems because she's holding him responsible. The more problems, the more he feels blamed. He doesn't realize that she's talking to feel better. A man doesn't know that she will appreciate it greatly if he will just listen. Men become impatient when women talk about problems in great detail. He thinks that all the details are necessary for him to find a solution to her problem. He struggles to find their relevance and becomes impatient. The more details she gives, the more he's frustrated while listening. His frustration is lessened if he can remember that she is greatly benefiting by talking about the details. This is something important to her. Something a woman can do to make it a little easier for a man is to let him know in advance the outcome of the story, and then go back and give the details. Avoid keeping him in suspense. If a woman can remind a man that she just wants to talk about her problems and that he doesn't have to solve any of them, it can help him to relax and just listen. Centuries before the Martians and Venusians got together, they had been quite happy living in their separate worlds. Then one day everything changed. The Martians and Venusians suddenly became depressed. It was this depression that motivated them eventually to come together. Understanding the secrets of their transformation helps us today to recognize how men and women are motivated in different ways. With this new awareness, you will be better equipped to support your partner, as well as get the support you need at difficult and stressful times. Let's go back in time and pretend to witness what happened. When the Martians became depressed, everyone on the planet left the cities and went to their caves for a long time. They were stuck and couldn't come out. until one day when a Martian happened to glimpse the beautiful Venusians through his telescope. The sight of these beautiful beings inspired the Martians, and they felt their depression miraculously lift. Suddenly they felt needed. They came out of their caves and began building a fleet of spaceships to fly to Venus. When the Venusians became depressed, to feel better, they formed circles and began talking with one another about their problems. But this didn't seem to relieve the depression. They stayed depressed for a long time until, through their intuition, they experienced a vision. Strong and wondrous beings, the Martians, would be coming across the universe to love, serve, and support them. Suddenly, they felt cherished. Their depression lifted, and they happily began preparing for the arrival of the Martians. Men are motivated and empowered when they feel needed. Women are motivated and empowered when they feel cherished. These secrets of motivation are still applicable. When a man does not feel needed in a relationship, he gradually becomes passive and less energized. With each passing day, he has less to give to the relationship. On the other hand, when he feels trusted to do his best to fulfill her needs and appreciated for his efforts, he is empowered and has more to give. When a woman doesn't feel cherished in a relationship, she gradually becomes overly responsible and exhausted from giving too much. On the other hand, when she feels cared for and respected and special, she is fulfilled and has more to give. When a man is in love, he begins to care about another as much as himself. He experiences his partner's fulfillment as if it were his own. He can easily endure any hardship to make her happy because her happiness makes him happy. His struggles become easier. He is energized with a higher purpose. Most men are not only hungry to give love, but are starving for it. Their biggest problem is they don't know what they're missing. They rarely saw their fathers succeed in fulfilling their mothers through giving. When his relationships fail, he finds himself depressed and stuck in his cave. He stops caring and then doesn't know why he's so depressed. At such times he asks himself, what is it all for? Why should I even bother? He doesn't know that he has stopped caring because he doesn't feel needed. He doesn't realize that by finding someone who needs him, he can shake off his depression and be motivated again. Not to be needed is a slow death for a man. Most men have little awareness of how important it is to a woman to feel supported by someone who cares. Women are happy when they believe their needs will be met. When a woman is upset, she needs to feel she's not alone. She needs to feel loved and cherished. Empathy, understanding, validation, and compassion go a long way to assist her in becoming more receptive and appreciative of his support. Men don't realize this because their Martian instincts tell them it's best to be alone when they're upset. When she's upset, out of respect, he will leave her alone. Or if he stays, he makes matters worse by trying to solve her problems. He doesn't instinctively realize that what she needs most is just someone to be there, someone to listen, someone who cares. A woman's tendency to become overly responsible relaxes as she remembers that she is worthy of love. She doesn't have to earn it. She can relax, give less, and receive more. She deserves it. When a woman realizes she's been giving too much, she tends to blame her partner for her unhappiness. Although she has not received what she deserves, to improve her relationships, she needs to recognize how she contributed to the problem. When a woman gives too much, she should not blame her partner solely for the problem. Likewise, a man who gives less should not blame his partner for being negative or unreceptive to him. Blaming does not work. Understanding, trust, compassion, acceptance, and support are the solution, not blaming our partners. When this situation occurs, Instead of blaming his partner for being resentful, a man can be compassionate and offer his support, even if she doesn't ask for it. Listen to her, even if at first it sounds like blame, and help her to trust and open up by doing little things for her to show he cares. Instead of blaming a man for giving less, a woman can accept and forgive her partner's imperfections, especially when he disappoints her. Trust that he wants to give more, but he doesn't know how, or he doesn't realize how important it is, and so he doesn't offer his support. She can also encourage him to give more by appreciating what he does do and continue to ask for his support. Most important, however, a woman needs to recognize her boundaries of what she can give without later resenting her partner. Instead of giving more and expecting her partner to then even the score, she needs to keep it even by regulating how much she gives. Setting limits and receiving are very scary for a woman. She's commonly afraid of needing too much and then being rejected, or judged, or even abandoned. Deep inside her unconscious, she may hold the incorrect belief that she is unworthy of love, particularly if as a child she witnessed abuse or was directly abused. Then she's even more vulnerable to feeling unworthy of love. Hidden in the unconscious, this feeling generates the fear of needing others. Because she is afraid of not being supported, she unknowingly pushes away the support she needs. When a man receives the message that she doesn't trust him to fulfill her needs, then he feels immediately rejected and is turned off. Her hopelessness and mistrust transform her valid needs into desperate expressions of neediness and communicate to him the message that she doesn't trust him to support her. Ironically, men are primarily motivated by being needed, but are turned off by this kind of neediness. At such times, a woman mistakenly assumes that having needs turned him off, when in truth it is her hopelessness, desperation, and mistrust that has done so. Without recognizing that men need to be trusted, it is difficult and confusing for women to understand the difference between needing and neediness. Needing is openly reaching out and asking for support from a man in a trusting manner, one that assumes that he will do his best. This empowers him. Neediness, however, is desperately needing support because you don't trust you'll get it. It pushes men away and makes them feel rejected and unappreciated. For women, not only is needing others confusing, but being disappointed or feeling abandoned is especially painful, even in the smallest ways. Needing others puts her in a vulnerable position. Being ignored or disappointed hurts more because it affirms the incorrect belief that she's unworthy. When a woman realizes that she truly deserves to be loved, she's opening the door for a man to give to her. But when it takes her 10 years of overgiving in a marriage to realize that she deserves more, ironically, she feels like closing the door and not giving him the chance. When this is the case, I have to assure women that they don't have to give more to have a better relationship. Their partner will actually give more if they give less. When a man has been ignoring her needs, it's as though they have both been asleep. When she wakes up and remembers her needs, he also wakes up and wants to give her more. A man's deepest fear is that he's not good enough, or that he's incompetent. He compensates for this fear by focusing on increasing his power and competence. Success, achievement, and efficiency are foremost in his life. Just as a woman is afraid around receiving, men tend to be afraid around giving. To extend himself in giving to her means to risk failure, correction, or even disapproval. These consequences are most painful because deep inside his unconscious, he may hold the incorrect belief that he's not good enough. This belief was formed and reinforced in childhood every time he thought he was expected to do better. Ironically, when a man really cares about his partner, his fear of failure increases, and sometimes he gives less. To avoid failure, he stops giving to the people he wants to give to the most. He appears most uncaring when he's most afraid. The first step for a man in learning how to give is to realize that it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to fail, and that he doesn't have to have all the answers. The phrase, "I don't know," isn't even in the Martian dictionary. Women commonly misinterpret a man's silence. Depending upon how she's feeling that day, she may begin to imagine the very worst. He hates me. He doesn't love me. He's leaving me forever. This may then trigger her deepest fear, which is, I'm afraid if he rejects me, then I will never be loved. I don't deserve to be loved. When a man is silent, it's easy for a woman to imagine the worst, because the only times a woman would be silent are when she had something to say that would be hurtful, or when she didn't want to talk to a person because she didn't trust him anymore and wanted nothing to do with him. No wonder a woman becomes insecure when a man suddenly becomes quiet. Women have a lot to learn about men before relationships can be really fulfilling. They need to learn that when a man is upset or stressed, he will automatically stop talking, go to his cave, and work things out. And no one is allowed in that cave. When a man goes to his cave, women should not become scared that they have done something terribly wrong. They need to gradually learn that if you just let a man go into his cave, after a while, he'll come out and everything will be fine. It is important for women not to try to get a man to talk before he's ready. Women get burned not only when they unknowingly invade a man's introspective time, but also when they misinterpret his expressions, which are generally warnings that he is either in his cave or on his way. When asked, "What's the matter?" a Martian will say something brief like, "It's nothing," or "I'm okay." Even when a man's out of the cave, he still needs to be trusted. They don't like unsolicited advice or empathy. They need to prove themselves. A man feels supported when a woman communicates in a way that says, "I trust you to handle things unless you directly ask for help." Learning to support men in this way can be very difficult in the beginning. Many women feel that the only way they can get what they need in a relationship is to criticize a man when he makes mistakes, or to offer unsolicited advice. If he behaves in a manner that she doesn't like, she can directly tell him that she doesn't like his behavior, without casting judgment that he is wrong or bad. Without an understanding of how she may be turning the men off in her life with unsolicited advice or criticism, a woman feels powerless to get what she needs or what she wants from a man. Nancy was frustrated in her relationship. She said, "I still don't know how to approach a man with criticism and advice. No matter how I tell him, he gets angry or defensive or just ignores me." The answer is, she should not offer criticism or advice unless he asks. Instead, she should try giving him loving acceptance. This is what he needs, not lectures. Men need to feel very secure before they open up and ask for support. As we've discussed, when a man goes into his cave or becomes quiet, he's saying, "I need some time to think about this. Please stop talking to me. I'll be back. And then we can talk." When he goes to his cave, a man doesn't realize that a woman may hear, "I don't love you. I can't stand to listen to you. I'm leaving and I'm never coming back." To counteract this message, he can learn to say these 4 magic words: "I will be back. I'll be back." It's amazing how these simple words make such a profound difference. In addition, he could say, "I'll be back, and then we can talk again." Good communication requires participation on both sides. A man needs to work at remembering that complaining about problems does not mean he's being blamed. A woman can work at letting him know that though she's complaining sometimes, she also appreciates him, or that she's not blaming him. For example, while writing this chapter, my wife Bonnie came in and asked how I was doing. I said, "Good. How's your day?" She said, "Oh, there's so much to do. We hardly have any time together anymore." The old me would have become very defensive and reminded her of all the time we have spent together. Or I would have told her how important my deadline was. This would have just created tension. The new me, aware of our differences, understood that she was just looking for some reassurance and understanding, and she wasn't looking for any justifications or explanations. I said, "You're right, we've been really busy. It's been a long day. Come here, sit in my lap, let me give you a hug." She then said, "You feel really good." This was the appreciation I needed in order to be more available to her. I then offered to drop off the babysitter so she could relax before dinner. She said, "Really? You'll take the babysitter home? That'd be great, thanks." Again, she gave me the appreciation I needed to feel like a successful partner, even when she was tired and exhausted. Women don't always think of giving appreciation because they assume a man knows how much she appreciates being heard. He doesn't know. He thinks he's doing nothing by listening. When she's talking about problems, he needs to be reassured that he is still loved and appreciated, and that he's doing something, even though from his point of view, he's doing nothing but listening. Men feel frustrated by problems unless they're doing something to solve them. By appreciating him for being a good listener, a woman can let him know that just by listening, he is also helping. A woman does not have to suppress her feelings or even change them to support her partner. She does, however, need to express them in a way that doesn't make him feel attacked, accused, or blamed. Making a few small changes can make a big difference. The 4 magic words to support a man are, "It's not your fault." It's not your fault. Reassuring a man that it's not his fault, or that he's not being blamed, works only as long as she truly is not blaming him. If she is attacking him, then she should share her feelings with somebody else. She should wait until she's more loving or centered to talk to him. A man often blames a woman for being blaming when she is innocently talking about problems. This is very destructive to the relationship because it blocks communication. A helpful approach is to remember that she always has a right to be upset, and that once she gets it out, she will feel much better. As a man learns to listen and interpret a woman's feelings correctly, communication becomes easier. Although listening is an important skill to practice, some days a man is too stressed or too sensitive to translate the intended meaning of her phrases. At such times, he should not even attempt to listen. Instead, he could kindly say, "This isn't a good time for me. Let's talk about it later. I need some time alone." As Bonnie and I have learned to communicate in a way that respects our differences and understands our needs, our marriage has become so much easier. I've witnessed this kind of transformation in thousands of individuals and couples. Relationships thrive when communication reflects a ready acceptance and a respect of people's innate differences. When misunderstandings arise, remember that we speak different languages. Take the time necessary to translate what your partner really means or wants to say. This definitely takes practice, but it's well worth it. Men are like rubber bands. When they pull away, they can stretch only so far before they come springing back. A rubber band is the perfect metaphor to understand the male intimacy cycle. This cycle involves getting close, pulling away, and then getting close again. Most women are surprised to realize that even when a man loves a woman, periodically he needs to pull away before he can get closer. Men instinctively feel this urge to pull away. It's not a decision or even a choice. It